Hello everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic back again, and it's time for what happened at AEW Double or Nothing 2023. Let's go. First, we need to talk about the pre-show or the buy-in match between the Gunns and Ethan Page and the team of the Hardys and Hook. 6-man tag team action, but if the bad guys lose, then Matt Hardy owns Ethan Page's contract. Oh no, Ethan. The faces are on top early on in this one, but the heels get back into it and they attack Isaiah Cassidy on the outside, ripping off his lovely diamond-studded neck brace. How dare you? Inside the ring, Ethan Page tries to use the twist of fate on Matt. So disrespectful. And then the heels do a bit of old school healing, kind of like FTR in fact, pulling Hook and Jeff off the apron when the hot tag is in progress. Jeff does eventually get the hot tag, but when he goes up for the Whisper in the Wind, he slips off the turnbuckles. Really scary botch. I feel like it could have gone worse than it did, but still, you never like to see that. Thankfully, he could continue and complete the match. However, when he gets in the ring later for a poetry in motion with Matt, he is clearly limping, then gets up on the top rope and needs to break up a pinfall attempt from the heels with a swanton, which thankfully, and fair play to him, he absolutely nails. That happens towards the end of the match, and Ethan Page ends up isolated in the ring. 2 Twist of Fates and the Red Rum later, and he's lost by submission. The faces win, and Page's contract is in the hands of Matt Hardy. Next up, Martha Hart arrives with Renee, and later, who's that dashing Vegas gambler? Why, it's only Hat Tony Khan. And Martha announces that the Owen Hart Foundation tournament will begin in Canada over Forbidden Door weekend, ending on July 15th at the Calgary Stampede. Look at Tony, man. He looks proper dashing. The first match of the main portion of the show is the international title 21-man battle royal with the champion Orange Cassidy facing the odds. Hopefully, Lady Luck is on his side. Kip Sabian tries to eliminate Cassidy immediately, the sneaky sausage, but the champion manages to hang on. Commander hits a huge dive early on as well, the luchador flying off the top rope to the outside, but half the guys, including him, haven't actually entered the ring yet, so he hasn't eliminated himself. It's just a bit of fun. At one point, all the luchadors team up in the middle of the ring, and by this point, everyone's kind of worked their way into the ring and the match is kind of filling up. But on the outside, Brian Cage and Swerve Strickland are still stood on the ramp. They haven't even entered yet. They're really healing it up, and I think you've got to really question the officials here, haven't you? Anyway, Cage gets in the ring, although Swerve still watches from the outside, and then Commander tries another big rope walk spot, but Jay White plays spoil sport and shoves him to the outside. He almost gets Ricky Starks at one point, who really pulls out his inner Shawn Michaels, clinging on with his feet inches from the floor. The eliminations gradually pick up a little bit, and finally Swerve decides to actually enter the match. Big Bill tries to knock Cassidy off the apron with a Big Bill Big Boot, but then Trent pushes his friend out of the way and takes the boot himself. So noble. Keith Lee tries to eliminate his old foe and old friend Swerve, but Brian Cage sneaks up from behind and eliminates Keith. Another notable elimination is Penta accidentally eliminating his own tag partner Ray Phoenix, while meanwhile Ricky Starks eliminates Juice Robinson to a huge pop. Ricky Starks is over. And he's even more over when he eliminates Jay White shortly after as well, but then Jay and Juice pull him out from under the ropes and beat him down on the outside. This leads to Starks being eliminated shortly afterwards by Big Bill. Then Dustin Rhodes eliminates Brian Cage with a nice Canadian destroyer on the apron, but Swerve takes advantage of his positioning and kicks him out as well. We're down to the final 4, which quickly becomes the final 3 when Bill eliminates Penta, and Bill then proves himself to be a very silly Billy, turning his back on Swerve, allowing Swerve to eliminate him, and we're down to the final 2. Swerve Strickland and the champion OC. Oh, Orange Cassidy. I don't know why I've shortened his name there. They get very near eliminations on each other and both think they've got it won at certain stages, but both men manage to cling on and have a very fast and furious back and forth. They battle to the apron and Prince Nana gets involved trying to grab Orange Cassidy's legs, so Cassidy kicks him away, but it allows Swerve to come off the top with a big double stomp, but Cassidy counters it with feet to the face. Swerve is wobbling and Orange Cassidy wins in typical lackadaisical Orange Cassidy fashion, lazily kicking Swerve's arms away from the ropes, and Swerve comically falls to the outside like a good heel. Great stuff. The second half of this match was way more entertaining than the first, and generally I think a fun show opener. Orange Cassidy is still the international champion. The next match is the unsanctioned match between Chris Jericho and Adam Cole, baby. There's a big brawl to start between the JAS and Adam Cole and his two allies, Roddy Strong, and the match's special enforcer, hardcore legend Sabu. Sabu throws a chair at Jericho and then flies off the top to the outside to put either Menard or Parker through a table. I don't know which one of them it was. I'm sorry about that, but I was distracted by the sight of Sabu flying through the air in 2023. All the allies brawl off to the back and it's down to just Jericho and Cole. Jericho goes for a lion salt early on, but Cole super kicks him out of midair. He then heads up top and goes for Panama Sunrise, but it's reversed into the walls of Jericho. Cole fights and makes the ropes, but the referee reminds him there are no rope breaks. This is unsanctioned action, Adam. So he reaches down behind the apron and grabs a fire extinguisher, spraying it in Jericho's eyes to break the submission. A little bit later on, Jericho plays possum to hit the code breaker for a near fall before he gets the fire extinguisher and just douses Cole with it. He's spraying it everywhere and then drops the fire extinguisher itself into Cole's midsection. Painful. Kris then prepares to dish out a beating with a kendo stick, but Britt Baker runs out with a kendo stick of her own and beats Jericho down. Some really savage blows here. It's really effective. And later on in the match, we see the welts on Jericho's ribs. Looks very sore. Saraya tries to save Jericho, but Britt chases her off to the back with the kendo stick, and we're back to just the two guys in the match. Adam Cole heads up top and gets hit with a chair, which sends him toppling to the outside through a table, and Jericho's back in control. He brings a chain into the ring and ties the two men together, but it's Cole who takes advantage of this, pulling Jericho with the chain into a big super kick before hitting Panama Sunrise for 2. Jericho avoids the boom and then starts whipping Cole with the chain. He then misses a Judas effect, but it kind of works to his advantage because he inadvertently manages to get the chain wrapped around Cole's neck and he almost chokes him out. However, Cole is able to flip out of this predicament and manages to hit the boom. But he's not done yet. He then wraps the chain around his leg and hits a second chain-assisted boom. Then he doesn't pin Jericho. He gets on top of him and rains down blows, first some right hands, then some chain-assisted right hands. Then it's kind of awkward position and he can't really get the chain. Just some left hands without the chain. The point is that Jericho is not responding anymore. He's not defending himself, and Aubrey Edwards waves off the match. Adam Cole wins by stoppage. I don't know what to make of that finish, because on one hand, I can't argue with the fact that it really does fit the personal angry theme of the feud between the two, but on the other hand, I don't know if it fit the rhythm of this particular match, because judging by the live crowd's reaction, it may have fallen a little bit flat in the building. Next up, we have the tag team title match with FTR defending against Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal with, of course, Mark Briscoe as the special guest referee. Early on, we get a pinfall attempt from Jay Lethal and Mark is slow to get down to make the count. Now, that might sound like a storyline thing, but I actually think it genuinely took him a second to realize here. But he's a wrestler, guys. He's not a damn official. He's a man of action. The challengers try to do some tricky heel stuff like a fake blind tag behind Mark's back where they just clap their hands, but the referee catches them. Later on, Cash Wheeler gets low bridge to the outside and Jeff tries to use a steel chair, but again, Briscoe catches him in the act. A lot of the match is then a long heat segment with the heels wearing down the baby faces, but Dax Harwood eventually gets the hot tag and takes it to Jay Lethal, but then Sonjay Dutt gets involved from the outside to try and help turn the tide, and Jay goes for his big Macho Man elbow drop, but Dax recovers, springs up top, and hits a superplex. That is followed by Cash getting involved for a double team Doomsday Powerbomb, 1, 2, but Sonjay pulls Dax out of the ring. This leads to Mark Briscoe throwing Sonjay out of the match and Satnam Singh as well for good measure, but as he does so, Jeff sneaks into the ring with a guitar. He tries to hit Dax, who moves, and Jarrett nails Mark Briscoe with the guitar. The lethal injection is then reversed into the Shatter Machine, but there's no referee, so Aubrey runs down to count the fall, but Sonjay stops her on the ramp. She shoves him over, but then Karen Jarrett hits a guitar shot to Aubrey Edwards. By God, it's all kicking off. In the ring, Jay hits a double lethal injection to both champions. Then Jarrett hits Dax with the belt and hits him with the stroke. Celebrates ahead of time because he knows he's got the match won. Mark recovers just at the wrong time and makes the count. 1, 2, but Dax Harwood kicks out and Jarrett can't believe it. In fact, Jeff is so furious that he slaps Mark Briscoe, who slaps him back and he turns into a Shatter Machine. 1, 2, 3. The champions retain. After the match, we go backstage where Jay White and Juice Robinson jump Ricky Starks during a backstage interview and beat him down, but FTR are on their way back from their match and they chase the two heels away. Elsewhere, Jericho and Saraya demand a mixed tag match against Cole and Britt, and then Jericho fireballs a poor backstage crew member who tells him to calm down. Jericho's like, "Don't tell me to calm down, I'm a wizard." Next up, the ladder match for Wardlow's TNT Championship, defending against Christian Cage. Wardlow gets a ladder from the outside early on, but Christian baseball slides it into his face, but Wardlow keeps a hold of the ladder, so when Christian leaps over the top onto him, Wardlow just uses it to swat him out of the sky. Later, they fight onto a ladder bridge between the apron and the guardrail, which Christian uses to low blow Wardlow between the rungs. Boo, you nasty man. Christian starts to press the advantage using the ladder to beat Wardlow down. Then he climbs the ladder but gets shoved off just after touching the belt. Wardlow then goes for a powerbomb, but he lifts Christian onto the ladder, silly Wardlow. Then he's not so silly because he drags him down and just slams him into the canvas. That's more like it, Wardlow. That's better strategy. Wardlow then hits a big spinning press slam onto a prone ladder lying on the canvas, and it's just a crazy display of strength from Wardlow. He makes it look so easy. He then climbs the ladder, but Luchasaurus runs out and helps Christian back into the ring, where he hits his reverse DDT off the ladder, sending Wardlow plummeting down to the canvas below. Wardlow's hurt now, and Christian decides to spear him into a ladder in the corner, but Wardlow counters it with a low blow and nails an Alabama slam onto the ladder on Christian. I hope I didn't say Alabama too weirdly there. I felt like I went Alabama slam. Then they go up top. Wardlow goes up top, and hits a swanton, but Christian moves and Wardlow crashes and burns on the ladder. Wardlow is now down and out on the outside, but Arn Anderson comes out to give him a pep talk, so he springs up top and intercepts Christian on the ladder by leaping from the corner onto the other side of the ladder, but it falls and both men topple over. It's kind of a botch, but also kind of makes sense because at least Wardlow stops Christian from climbing. Wardlow now tries to climb the now mangled ladder, and the ref gets in to help hold it steady, but the way the ladder is bent, it kind of ruins it, and Wardlow is instead the ref kind of pulls Wardlow down onto the canvas, and Wardlow's fuming with the referee. He gets a better ladder into the ring, but turns into Luchasaurus, who hits him with a choke slam. Arn Anderson rushes in to attack Luchasaurus, who grabs him for a chokeslam as well, but Arn counters it by biting his thumb, and the thumb's all bloody, and Arn's covered in blood as well. I guess he had like a pack in his mouth, but it looks weird. Like, the crowd don't really know what to make of it. I think you're going to be like, oh, so disgusting, Arn's so brutal, but I think everyone was just a bit confused live. But the crowd do know what to make, though, of the next spot, as Wardlow climbs a massive ladder on the ramp and nails a swanton all the way down onto Luchasaurus through 2 tables below. A great spot. Well done, Wardlow. Really terrifying. This leaves Christian all alone in the ring, and he climbs, but here come Wardlow and Arn into the ring just in time. Arn shoves the ladder over, Christian falls onto Wardlow's shoulders, and he hits a powerbomb, which is enough to incapacitate Christian long enough that Wardlow can climb the ladder and retain the belt. Action-packed stuff, and Wardlow is still the champion. Next up, we have Jamie Hayter defending her women's title against Toni Storm, a match I'm quite interested in seeing how it pans out because of the reports that Jamie Hayter is suffering a legit injury. Will they take the belt off her? Let's find out. Hayter doesn't initially come out when her music plays, but eventually when she does emerge, we see that she's being beaten down by all 3 members of the Outcasts. They get her into the ring and the referee starts the match. Like, Hayter says she's fine and gives him the go-ahead, but she's just been beaten down, ref, come on. Britt Baker comes along while Toni presses the advantage in the ring, and she attacks Saraya. They brawl off screen, but on the other side of the ring, Ruby Soho has the spray, and she sprays Jamie Hayter's eyes behind the referee's back. However, Hayter kicks out of the subsequent near fall off of Toni's hip attack, and now Hikaru Shida runs out and takes care of Ruby, attacking her with the kendo stick. So now Storm is all alone. She gets sent into an exposed turnbuckle, and then Jamie hits Haterade, but her arm is too sore and she can't make the pinfall immediately. So Toni just kicks out. Shortly afterwards, Hayter is now sent into the exposed turnbuckle, but it's kind of awkward. She has to correct course to hit the... She doesn't run straight forward. She veers off deliberately into the exposed turnbuckle, so it looks a little bit clunky. Anyway, she rebounds into Storm's finisher. 1, 2, 3... and Toni Storm is the new AEW Women's Champion. It feels really, really cheap, obviously, but with the news of Hayter's injury being legit, I guess they didn't want to take many risks here with a particularly long match or anything like that. It was almost more of an angle than a match, really. So yeah, it doesn't feel that satisfying, but it does, I guess, give Hayter a chance to recover in time for, in theory, a big revenge victory in England at All In. The next match is an open challenge for the trios titles held by the House of Black. Their challenge is answered by the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. Yo, it's the Acclaimed. I'm a bit too excited there. I couldn't remember any of the lyrics. I do have a couple of the bars that Caster freestyled though, like, but he acts all ominous when he's getting cucked by a kid called Dominic. Oh, WWE reference. It's worth also mentioning the spooky lighting they've been doing recently in these title defenses, and I reckon that it looks good here in this arena. Malachi and Bowen start off the match, and in the early stages, Malachi is so evasive. He does his sit-down taunt, but then Bowens does it too, and adds a scissor taunt in as well. He wins the taunt off. The Acclaimed take control for a while after teaming up on Malachi, and they go for Scissor Me Timbers, but Malachi catches it into a knee bar, while the other two challengers, Caster and Billy, get beaten up on the outside. In fact, at one point, Brody King splashes Billy into the barricade. Malachi works over Bowens' leg inside the ring, as we are reminded of the no rope breaks rule in House of Black title defenses. Bowens keeps almost getting the hot tag several times, very convincing actually, in a long face in peril segment, but the champions just keep stopping him at the last second and continue to wear him down. He finally seems to have it, but then Brody dashes around the ring and pulls Billy off the apron. So then Billy launches Brody into the barricade, gets back up on the apron, and finally gets the hot tag. However, it's also the closing sequence of the match, as Billy Gunn runs wild until Brody King chops him, so Billy just no-sells it, says F you, and hits a Faymaster. That's certainly one way to counter a big chop. Buddy Matthews takes a Faymaster as well, but then Billy turns into Black Mass, and he is out for 3. The champions retain in a very fun match. Next up, Jade Cargill is defending her TBS title against Taya Valkyrie. Both have special entrances. Taya has some exotic dances going on. Jade has a very elaborate entrance. She has a whole dance routine planned alongside Alpha Kappa Alpha, the oldest African-American sorority in the States. She's also wrapped to the ring by Big Boss Vet, who has a song called Pretty Girl Walk. All the pretty girls walk like this, and then they all do a dance. It's good. I'm like, oh man, Jade Cargill is definitely winning here. But was I right? Kind of. Let's have a look. Both women look for their finishers early on. They have the same finisher, remember, but both manage to counter it. Jade has a strategy meeting on the outside with Mark Sterling until Taya wipes him out, leaping from the top rope. Back inside, Valkyrie hits a running, sliding German under the ropes back to the outside. Then they get back in the ring and Jade gets a near fall with a big spine buster. A little bit later on, Jade then springboards into the ring, but Taya counters it with, I think, like an attempted code breaker or lung blower, but instead they just kind of collide in midair, and I think she just knees Jade away. It seems effective anyway. Taya takes control with a big curb stomp and then hits the road to Valhalla. 1, 2, very near fall. I can't remember seeing Jade in such jeopardy at many other stages during this massive title run. However, she regains control of the match with a kick to the head and hits Jade at 1, 2, 3. Jade Cargill wins, but it's not over yet. She moves to 60-0, and then Mark Sterling cuts a promo saying, there's no one left who can beat Jade. Who's gonna beat her? Which, if you've ever watched wrestling, means it's time for someone to come along right now. That person is Kris Statlander, back on the active roster after spending some time out with injury. It's really good to see Statlander back, and to my surprise, Jade accepts the match. It's happening right now. The champion almost hits Jaded, but Statlander gets out. They both counter each other's moves back and forth, and then Kris hits Big Bang Theory and gets the win. She's the new TBS champion, and in maybe even bigger news, Jade Cargill loses. She's a big loser. Well, no, that's quite harsh. She's won all of her matches apart from this one, but yeah, she's lost. The second last match of the night is the world title match, the four-way between Jack Perry, or Jungle Boy Jack Perry, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, and the champion MJF. Now, this is a little bit unusual for AEW, who like to close their big pay-per-views with this title match, the AEW World title match, but it's not the first time this has happened. Remember, Stadium Stampede has headlined pay-per-views before, for example, so it's a little bit unusual, but not totally unheard of. We have a nice moment during the entrances as Sammy Guevara and Ty Conti announce their pregnancy, or Ty's pregnancy, during Sammy's entrance. Congratulations to the pair of them. Darby, meanwhile, has filmed a video in Las Vegas in a wedding chapel where he beats up a guy with an MJF mask on and then gets Elvis to help him dispose of the guy's body. You keep doing you, Darby. Anyway, the match begins and all three challengers team up on MJF early before they all have a lucha exchange amongst themselves and none of them can get the advantage. MJF mockingly applauds them from the apron but gets knocked to the outside. Later on, MJF teases a big dive to the outside but then just struts instead, and it's worth noting that of the four guys, he's probably getting the most cheers at this stage, while there are, I think, audible boos for Jack Perry as he hits a series of dives. Sami finishes the sequence, by the way, with a huge shooting star press onto all three. Everyone gets a bit of a turn running wild until MJF is the last man standing and he heels out on Darby Allin, spitting on him, telling him he's worthless, but then Sami comes back in with a big super kick. MJF blocks it, but that leaves him wide open to a super kick from Jack Perry instead. It then all breaks down with everyone hitting big moves on each other and all four end up down on the canvas. Later, we get a nice moment where all four men hit their mentors' moves. So like Darby hits Sting's Scorpion Death Drop, Sami hits the Codebreaker because of his time with Jericho, Jungle Boy hits the Kill Switch because of Christian, and then MJF hits the Crossroads. It only gets a near fall, but it's a great moment. MJF then gets on the mic and tells Sami, hey, you've got a baby on the way, you need the money, just lay down, I'll pin you, and then I'll pay you off. And then he gives Sami the mic, and Sami goes, yeah, I'll do it, I'll let you pin me. And I'm thinking, no, Sami, no. But it's just a trick. He rolls MJF up, but it only gets two. We then get simultaneous submissions as Sami gets MJF in the walls of Jericho, while Darby gets Jungle Boy in the Scorpion Deathlock. Then all four men lock simultaneous submissions on each other in like a square, like a chain of submissions. Later on, we get a crazy spot as Sami hits Darby with a Spanish Fly from the top all the way to the outside onto the other two guys. All four men are getting tired now, and they all have a weary strike exchange in the middle of the ring. MJF pokes all three guys in the eyes, only to be met with a triple kick from all three opponents. They want to finish him off and chain big moves together before throwing MJF out of the ring, then exchanging roll-ups with each other. None of them, though, are able to get the pinfall through a very complex series of roll-throughs, which really brings the fans to their feet at this stage. MJF powerbombs Darby off the top, but seems to hurt his own arm in the process. Then Jungle Boy tries to pick the bones, looking to pin anybody, but they all kick out, and Sami hits Jungle Boy with a cutter off the middle rope, but Jungle Boy rolls to the outside. Sami can't get the pin. Frustrated, he goes over to MJF and gets low blowed. MJF gets the Dynamite Diamond ring out of his trunks, but Darby hits him in the back of the head with his skateboard. Darby hits the coffin drop, scoops MJF up, tries the headlock takeover as promised, but Jungle Boy breaks up the pinfall at the very last second. MJF now tries to use the belt, but Jungle Boy blocks it, and Sami takes MJF out of the ring, so Jungle Boy is just left holding the title belt. He thinks about using it on Darby, but he just can't bring himself to do so. Obviously, Darby then grabs the snare trap and almost pins Jungle Boy, but he kicks out. Sami hits the GTH on Jungle Boy and heads up top, but Darby shoves him off to the outside. Then Darby goes up top for the coffin drop, but MJF lays the belt on Jungle Boy's chest and Darby lands back first on it when he hits the move. MJF then grabs Darby, hits the headlock takeover, and retains the title. I'm out of breath. Really, really well done, I thought. All four guys really brought their A game and really overcame quite a heavily criticized build in delivering a wonderful title match. That's just my opinion, but yeah, I thought it was great. And finally, Anarchy in the Arena, the Blackpool Combat Club versus the Elite. The Elite. Also, Don Callis is on commentary. Oh, he's not friends with Omega anymore. Could he be a factor? We'll see. The Elite come out first, and then the BCC are played out by Violent Idols, who are covering Wild Thing. And then the BCC come down from the stands, and they meet the Elite on the steps to begin the brawl. And the band all the while are just carrying on playing shades of the first Anarchy in the Arena match. They gradually fight down to the ringside area, like the Bucks are flying out the crowd. There's replica belts being taken from fans and used as weapons. The band is still playing, by the way. At one point, Claudio grabs one of the refs who is bleeding. I don't know how that happened, while in the ring, Hangman reveals to Bryan that his eye is fine. Shades of Moxley's feud with Jericho, I guess, but now obviously Moxley's one of the bad guys. The band is still playing until the Bucks brawl their way up the ramp and superkick the singer, and that finally puts a stop to the song. Matt does his chained back suplexes on Wheeler Yuta all the way down the ramp, while Moxley fights with Kenny Omega to the side of the stage and whips him into the giant poker chip, possibly a reference to the ending of the first ever Double or Nothing nothing event, which is a very cool reference if deliberate. I think it is. Moxley then reveals that the other side of the poker chip is covered in barbed wire, and he suplexes Kenny onto it. We get some split screen action because there's stuff happening like all over the arena as Moxley attacks Kenny with a fork, while we also see Claudio swinging Matt Jackson around in the concourse. A little while later, we check back on Claudio and Matt Jackson and see that they've battled outside to the parking lot, or the car park, I should really say, as an English person. They fight in the back of a pickup truck until Claudio hits a pile driver onto Matt onto the bed of the truck. Back in the arena, Hangman hits Deadeye on Moxley on the apron, while Yuta goes crazy with a leaf blower that he's got from somewhere. Kenny then uses a trash can lid, a bit like Captain America's shield, and I'm like, Kenny, this is no time for nerdy references now. This is a fight, Kenny, come on. Or maybe it is the perfect time for these nerdy references because it seems to act as a rallying cry to the Elite. It turns the tide momentarily in their favor after a long spell of Blackpool Combat Club domination because Nick Jackson starts to run wild on everybody, but Moxley brings his momentum to a halt with a Gotch-style piledriver for 2. Moxley and Danielson lock simultaneous submissions on Nick Jackson at this point until Matt comes back down from the outside of the arena, hobbling his way down the ramp, holding his neck, but he saves Nick by hitting Moxley with, I'm not kidding, an exploding super kick. Like his shoe he hits Moxley and his shoe what? Wheeler gets hit with the buckshot lariat, not an exploded, just a normal buckshot lariat, but he manages to kick out of the move. Claudio then gets the shoe and boots it miles away into the crowd, and then the Blackpool Combat Club, I don't like this part, they slam a barefooted Matt Jackson onto some thumbtacks, which is actually sickening, but he kicks out of a subsequent Death Rider. But why would you take that bump, Matt? Nick tries to save his brother, and he also gets slammed into the thumbtacks. Thankfully, though, he doesn't take it on the sole of his foot. He only gets hit directly in the face, so I guess that's okay. The Blackpool Combat Club all surround Matt Jackson and put thumbtacks in his mouth, and then Claudio hits him with an uppercut, and the thumbtacks go everywhere. Wheeler then hits a German for 3, but Hangman breaks it up, but it kind of is a 3 count, and Hangman breaks it up a bit too late, but it's a minor slip up in what is a very thrilling match, so we'll forgive it. Kenny Omega fights back though and hits Bryan with the one-winged angel, but Wheeler Yuta breaks up the pinfall. But now Wheeler is outnumbered and surrounded by Hangman and Kenny. Kenny sets him up for the one-winged angel, but Don Callis gets in the ring for a distraction. Kenny drops Yuta and turns round and sees his old friend, and he's about to dish out some justice when Kenny is blindsided by a jumping knee from a masked figure who saves Callis and reveals that it's none other, I think we could maybe guess it, it's Konosuke Takeshita, Callis' new protege. That is the turning point this match needed to solidify the win for the BCC, because Wheeler finishes Kenny off with the screwdriver and secures the win for his team. Wheeler Yuta pins Kenny Omega, but with a massive assist from Konosuke Takeshita. And that's how the show ends. Well, Don Callis then chokes Kenny out with a belt, and Kenny's all like lying in the ring. It's a sad ending, and the BCC celebrate having conquered the Elite. And that is it for a very breathless edition of AEW Double or Nothing. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments section down below. I've been Jack from Cultaholic. A huge thank you to Owen and Luke for editing this very video, and I'll see you all very soon.